what's the bigger picture?
Oh man, this is a really hard question. I'm trying to build that bigger picture, I guess, by talking to people like you. I don't have a great answer. I know, yeah, I really don't have a very clear mental model. In fact, it's never been more unclear to me in some way. It's hard for me to see how tension between AI and crypto resolves because on the one hand, you have like this, yeah, extremely, I'd say, centralizing force. I'd say like it's like this technology that sort of favors incumbents more so than anything. It's like the good idea that looks like a good idea, right? Like that's basically how I characterize AI, like in a lot of the AI startups, right? It's like a bunch of people working on really cool, valuable technology, but it looks like good, valuable technology. Everyone knows it's a good idea, and including the incumbents, and so therefore there's a ton of like competition. But there's also immediate value to users today, and so there's clearly like a flywheel there, which means there's going to be a ton of adoption and a ton of value that flows into that ecosystem generally. And then on the other hand, you've got crypto, which is like, yeah, I mean, it's much more non-obvious, especially when you go outside of like financial rails, right?
Yeah.
And more sort of into quote unquote Web3, right? Like decentralized social, NFTs and stuff like that. It gets a little bit more wishy-washy. I don't know.
No,
I
and
don't have
that's
a great
fine.
mental model for the future. Yeah.
I think it is a good point with the AI and crypto battle. And I mean, we see that like daily, just even on terms of like how tech Twitter has changed. All of a sudden, everyone who was in crypto like last year is now like, going to YC for a new AI startup that they're making. And you're right, like who knows like really the direction of how that plays out in terms of the next bull market or when does this hype about GPT-4 die or does it even die off anytime soon or I guess what does that play into?
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it dies off. I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's like going to be like a financial cycle, but as far as like
Yeah.
like there's a huge amount of like valuable businesses to be built in GPT-4 or like using things like Chat GPT and GPT-3 and all that. I just I just from a competition point of view, right? I think Chris Dixon is the one that like again it talks about this is like you want to work on ideas that you want to work on good ideas that look like bad ideas, right? Because all of the ideas that are good ideas that look like good ideas, people are working on it, right?
Yeah.
Not just people, like incumbent companies, large companies are
Like
working on good ideas
Microsoft
that
and
look
Google
like
are
good
working
ideas,
on
right?
it. Yeah.
So like the path to for most companies is probably like or startups is like you build something great. Your likely path is you're going to get acquired by one of the big companies, or
Yeah.
you get crushed by them because of their distribution, right? Whereas like in the crypto world, I think there's probably a lot of good ideas that don't look like good ideas for many reasons, and so there's more room for like founders to build like you know the big companies that do the acquiring.
Yeah.
Or maybe,
And
yeah, maybe everything just becomes a protocol. So,
yeah. And maybe one last piece of advice for the listeners, but how can they start looking out for ideas that are good, but maybe aren't being talked about that much in crypto or just like sort of bad ideas surface level? Like how do you sort of scope those out and find the little gold nuggets, I guess?
well, I don't have a great strategy here because that's also what I'm figuring out. But what I do is I just go really deep in things that I find interesting and like go to sort of the frontier, right? And so for me, more recently it was nouns, right? Like just went to the absolute edge of nouns and like sort of
Yeah.
like I found like this idea of like a subreddit with a shared bank account really interesting, right? And like nouns is at undoubtedly at the forefront of that, and so like just go to the front and then try to push it forward, I guess, and so that way you have like a very good mental model of what's happening there. Um, yeah, I guess that's what I'd say.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, Salvino. This was a super awesome episode, and I'm excited to see if the sneakers, if they come out, or whatever next luxury product you're putting out there. But I'm hyped to see what happens with Nouns Vision.
Yeah, man, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Alrighty.